but Westworld season 4. It's been a few weeks now, but we talked about the first 2 episodes previously, so feel free to go back and watch those. But right now, we're going to be discussing episodes 3 and 4.
Yes.
What do you think?
um, I enjoyed these episodes a lot. I thought they were well put together, taken as a pairing, because a lot is happening in 3 that gets a payoff in 4.
Right.
So, and a lot of things from this season are starting to make sense, and I'm excited about them. So, I really felt like episode 4 was such a great story with a twist that I did not see coming until it was happening, and I guessed it, but I wasn't mad that I guessed it. I was very excited that I guessed it.
Okay, so describe to us, so spoilers obviously, but
Yes.
what are you
Yes.
referring to here?
So from the last episode, we have Bernard and Stubbs, who are meeting up with a very random seeming woman in the parking lot of a diner, going off with her and like getting in with her crew, and um, just kind of being like, oh, we're gonna go with them because Bernard just knows what has to happen now because he's like a Cassandra that people actually listen to. So yeah, so they go off with her, like, join up with her crew in the middle of a desert, seeming nowhere, um, and they're telling her, like, "We can help your people, like, we can help your group," like, Bernard's like, "I know where a weapon is that you're searching for, I know what you're looking for, I got this," and you're like, "Okay, cool, random." Um, so they finally get the chance to go out into the desert, and we slowly, by turns, are getting this storyline of like uncovering the weapon with what we learn in the episode is a flashback to another point in time. Yeah, here we go. Reveal right here. That Bernard is actually living sometime in the future of the events that we've been watching unfold between Caleb and Maeve. And Bernard is out in the desert with Caleb's daughter Frankie digging up Maeve, who we see and we don't know at the time, but you're kind of, sort of starting to guess it.
Yeah.
She's back in a previous time period. I'm guessing like 10, 15ish years by the age of Frankie at this point. Um,
Right.
was in the new faux Westworld, Temperance, the Roaring Twenties, with Caleb, tried to get out, ended up sacrificing herself so that Caleb could get out, by setting off a bunch of charge mines and burying herself under a massive pile of sand, which in the present moment we just see as desert. But as we're moving forward with the Caleb and Maeve storyline, we see they're actually in what used to be Westworld.
Yep.
So
So
I did not know that this was gonna be like a flashback and forward until it was happening, and it was in the middle of it, and I was just realizing that Bernard saying he's gonna dig up a weapon and realizing Maeve was about to bury herself. It's like, "Oh my god, he's digging up Maeve. He's digging up Maeve. That is Frankie." I know it is, even though they call her C, and it was Frankie, and they were digging up Maeve, and I was like, "I'm not mad about this. This is awesome."
yeah. No, I agree. I didn't think about the Maeve thing until pretty late on that what they were
Yeah,
digging up was Maeve. I definitely the first time I saw her, I'm like, that's Frankie. I think it was something with the transition that they
sure.
did between the stories where we were just like, I think I don't know if we were seeing Frankie escape or something, and then we cuts to this. I'm like, okay,
Sure.
because we had that was the thing that was puzzling me before was Bernard. Like we ended season 3 with him putting on this device, zonking out, and then waking up covered in dust. So we
Right.
knew a a large amount of time had passed. Yet now we're getting Bernard here. Like what is happening? So we had to do something with this time jump. And yeah, I think
So
it
good.
was yeah, it was well put together. It's well put
Mhm.
together. And I'm really As I was sitting there, as soon as I thought that, and then we're watching Bernard and stuff go along with Stubbs, I'm like, so what is the world like now? Like, what
Yeah.
has happened? And so it's interesting. We see now at the end what it's like, and we assume, right, that um, Dolores and Teddy are in this time,
Ah.
right?
Mhm.
Are in the present that's been taken over, basically.
Yeah, so I'm assuming that she's in either the present or even potentially another future because she
Okay,
can't be in the past
right.
because she's drawing these things that are clearly in Caleb, which bah, reveal he's a host now. Um it's in his and Hale Loris's present because we get the flash at
Yeah.
the end of episode 4 where they've built this terrible tower that's, a
Oh,
a controlling
s-
device that she draws in like a picture, and she's like, "Oh, I don't know what this is. It's some crazy
so it's
thing." But
earlier.
they've right, so they've erected this tower that she's drawn.
Hmm.
So, yeah. So I don't know where I still don't know exactly where she might fall in a timeline, but she's clearly not in the older timeline where Caleb and Maeve were walking through Temperance and like
Yep.
going through, new old Westworld and going on
See,
that adventure.
you talking about that makes it perfect sense now. I think it's we're dealing with three different time periods,
Mhm.
and Dolores. I'm just gonna what's her name in here now? I'm just gonna call her Dolores. Really,
Christina. No, it's
Christina.
okay. I do think of
Uh,
her as Dolores.
yeah.
I
So
wrote in my notes and then I had to like change some of them to Christina and I was like, "Oh god."
yeah, I it makes sense that this is the Halorus's plan is in the stages of execution
Mhm.
while we're watching her, because
Yeah,
it would make sense that some people are starting to realize they're being controlled because the people are coming that's what never made sense before. Like they're coming to her saying they're controlling. You're why are you writing this thing, and then they do it. Well,
right,
that's people seemingly understanding that they're
right.
being made to do stuff, and some of
That's
them
Hale working out the
maybe,
kinks.
yeah, whereas some of the adults are not as influenced as easily and some of that. So
Right.
there's errors, and then yeah, the signal being sent out. So the other hosts, how do they see this? And so representing it in her drawings in that way. And
Mhm.
so yeah, we're still gonna, it seems, get to see the minutia more of how we get to where things are. So like I wonder if we're
Right,
gonna get for a while be dealing with that kind of time period to work up to, yeah, hey, the whole world's taken over
right.
by the machines here, by Hale.
Right, and I did enjoy the nod to, we come out of, Caleb just realizing, like, what's happened to him and that, he's in an interview with Hale Loris, establishing a baseline. Um,
Yeah.
oh, that was really good. Some excellent acting, but some excellent writing as well. And he, runs out totally panicked, and you see him run past the front desk of Olympiad Entertainment, which is, of course, the company where Dolores Christina works. And of course, would tell you why people are like coming up to her, being like, "Why are you writing my life?" And,
Yeah.
she literally is. And I thought that all along, but I really like the way that they revealed it. It
Mhm.
was well done.
Yep. Yep. It's yeah, I'm just happy because whereas the last season did give us some fun things to think about,
Hmm.
it was purely because of the subject matter and not because of the execution. And this is
Yeah.
like enjoyable to watch because of the execution here.
Yep.
Um, things are paying off. I mean, we're 4 episodes in and we've just gotten some answers. Like we didn't have to
Hmm.
wait forever to understand that we're going and viewing different uh points in time.
Yep.
So yeah, it's been It's been good, and
Or
I feel
or
like
confirmation that the flies were a thing and, like, look out, they're infecting everybody. Like,
mhm,
I
mhm.
like it.
So, I guess a complaint I had is I don't know. I still don't know if I love the relationship with Stubbs and um, Arnold. Um,
Oh,
it's
Bernard
it's
Arnold, yeah.
Bernard. Yeah, it's fine. I just I don't know. I didn't like them together very much in the last season, and so maybe I
Mhm,
will more in this one. But
mhm.
yeah, I don't know. And then I was a
Yeah,
little yeah,
sorry, just to pause on that, I agree with that, mostly because they really haven't done anything, like, to bond them together in any
right.
particular way. I mean, they had, like, a fun little moment where, like, Stubbs was in the diner eating his tuna melt and playing a cool song, and Bernard was outside kicking butt, but, like, could've been anybody.
Yep.
So, hopefully, like, I'm excited that they have, like, something meaningful to do right now,
Yes.
and they're gonna interact with Maeve, which, is not interactions we've seen really before. So that this feels fun in that it's purposeful for them, but yeah, like, their relationship isn't particularly focal.
Some bloke named Chris in the chat is says I have questions about Christina's roommate. She was
Yes,
weirdly persistent about her meeting to Teddy. Nothing,
which
something.
happens. Yes,
Yeah.
totally, totally. I definitely also had that in my notes. Um, where did
Like
I have that?
I was
Yes, well, it's,
taking
like, so obviously a setup. It's so obviously a setup. Like, she was super pushy about her needing to go out. She set up her date with Teddy and then just, like, watched. She, like, didn't go out.
yeah.
She didn't behave like a
Right.
normal
Which she said she
person,
really
like,
needed to go out, but she didn't.
yeah, like, that means, like, you need to go out and, like, have a drink, get your flirt on, like, whatever it is you need to do to, like, let off steam. You don't just, like, creepily watch your roommate have
Mhm.
obviously a very intense interaction with their date.
Well, so if we've established that potentially during this time the they're they're working on ceding control of everybody, but they are working out some kinks yet. And so some people are having some problems. Well, her roommate having like nightmares again, acting very odd, feels like she's being forced to do this. So she's probably
Mhm.
infected and doesn't
She talks
exactly
about
know what's going
flies in the
on.
food.
Yep. So
Come
she's
on.
infected and is being made to set her up with Teddy, but for why? Why?
Right.
It's like, is this a
Right.
thing for Hale? Like, is this a Christina needs
Mhm.
Teddy to like be who she wants her to be? Or is it like gonna
Mhm.
be a ploy of revenge, like try to bring back some memories and then rip them away? Or
Sure.
there's gotta be a point, right?
Yeah, and that's one of the things I feel like was great about these few episodes is it really showed us Hale Loris's potential for planning and being a villain. Because it seemed initially like Maeve and Caleb were getting away with this and they were kidnapping her and she was going along and wasn't like resisting terribly much. So you were
Yeah.
like had this like sneaking suspicion that there was something else happening, but I didn't see it happening on this level
Right.
and that she was, like, talking to the 278th Caleb, who was she was establishing a baseline, and she just, like, overwhelmingly crushed this, like, tiny bit of rebellion and resistance.
Yep.
Um, so it really showed us her potential for planning, playing along, playing the long game, and just overwhelmingly winning.
Yep.
So that's what makes it exciting to think about, like, is she behind this? Because what kind of game is she playing and thinking she's winning?
Yep. Yeah, because you're right earlier when you said that these two were good to watch together. Because if we had say watched episodes 1 through 3 and then waited to watch 4, there were a lot of unanswered things. And as you mentioned, I put in my notes too, like a lot of not struggle. Why couldn't you escape from the back of that vehicle? All these sorts of things. Like I was like, would the handcuffs really even hold her? All this,
Right.
and then it makes sense. Yes, of
Yeah.
course. It's set up. Even going around underneath Westworld, it was like, where's the security? Where are the cameras? Like, why is there no alarm going off and people running in to deal with these intruders? Clearly, well,
Right.
because it's setup. So,
Right.
yep, yep. You called out the soundtrack. Good. Yep.
Yes. Oh, it was so good. Yeah, episode 3 was a lot of fun in, bringing the familiar back in new ways. We're basically in Westworld. Temperance is
Hmm.
Westworld. The same storylines, just with like different faces. So it was fun to see those, but also like kind of frustrating to see these like low rent versions of the characters that like we
Oh
already
yeah.
knew.
Right.
So that was weird. And I did appreciate, I'd been kind of down on Caleb and like needing he felt more useful this season, but not
Yes.
quite up to his full potential. But I was impressed with him just being like, God, Maeve, you had to live through this shit. Like, ugh. Just sort of like expressing that solidarity of like, my God, these were shitty storylines for people to write for you and for you to live
Hmm.
through.
Hmm.
So it was fun to kind of watch this like secondhand version play out and Maeve get a little bit of vengeance or kind of working it out of her system, being like, oh my God, I'm so far from here now.
Yeah, I think that, speaking to the characters and what they're all up to, I feel like it's a lot more of an honest um like path for all of them to be on. They all feel a little more useful, all makes a little more sense than
Mm-hmm.
last season, where last season we did a, we see now it was leading to something. There's so much wasted time with Bernard and stuff. It really was not
Yes.
particularly engaging. We don't know what's going on with this. And I feel like everybody has a purpose now and something meaningful to do. And so I'm not bored by anyone's storyline, which can be a thing sometimes when you're juggling this many.
Agreed.
It was fun to see another familiar face at the beginning of 3 when Bernard was yet in, I forget what they call it exactly, but in his
Oh, the
like
device. Yeah.
yeah, when he was in basically the world established for hosts that,
Hmm. Yeah,
I
like
I don't
Valley
if
Beyond. I
yeah.
forget what they call it
Mhm.
though. Yeah, totally.
So it's fun to see him and how he said a year in the physical world is a millennia there.
Mhm. Which is
So
why Bernard is like, "Hey, I know everything."
yeah, he's like pulled the ultimate Doctor Strange, right? It's
Right?
like
Been
see
through
all
all
the
of these scenarios, sees
yeah.
how they all play out. Yeah, I love
Hmm.
how bits of that are, like, playing out, um, with Stubbs being like, "Hey, we're in the midst of, like, this gang who's about to shoot us, like, tell me we're not gonna die," and he's like, "Yeah, most of the time we don't."
Yeah.
Like,
Yep.
just let's great little, like, throwaway, but not quite throwaway comments like that really just, like, make you appreciate, like, it's kind of a funny moment, but also, like, continuity. I very much
Yep.
enjoy that.
Yep. Yeah, Bernard's definitely it's a little whiplash for how he was in the last season, how he is now. But I guess we're supposed to take that as sort of a this is the
He's
effect
been in there.
this had on him, yeah, after seeing so many possibilities for the future.
Mhm.
And it'd be interesting to talk a little more, or to for the show to discuss more Bernard's motivations here and stuff. Like what
Mhm.
is it, to reaffirm for us why this is important for him to do and why he cares about humanity in the way he does.
Right. Well, and I mean, it's kind of a dual purpose of caring about humanity and being the failsafe. Because last season, I feel like we thought he was out to stop Dolores, and he
Hmm.
still sort of is. He's
Yeah.
just out to stop a different version of Dolores.
Right.
He's out to stop Halores now.
Hmm.
And like why that's been kind of like a fail safe for Bernard
Right.
to be the person who's doing this.
Yeah. I mean, isn't it easy? Wouldn't it be easy? I think people are getting to this point. or some of them anyways, they're really kind of nihilistic. And wouldn't it be easy for a machine to be kind of the ultimate version of this? Like, what's it really matter what happens?
Right.
What does it matter what happens to humans, to the world? Like, what in the grand scheme of things, who cares? What's, you know,
Sure. Well, and I mean, part of it could be a question of why does it matter that humans are okay and why are we saving humans? Or part of it could be a question of, how important is it to me that hosts, machines, my people don't become what humans were to us, you
sure.
know? So much of the couple of focuses I think in these last few episodes have been like Maeve is like, oh God, like I had to live through these storylines, and Caleb's like, oh my God, you had to live through these shit storylines. And then in this episode 4, Hale is talking about, like, I prefer to call these humans that have been infected hosts. So it's very much in like on the nose, like
Right.
role reversal. And then there's another there. Oh, um, like Hale is, talking at the end, and she's like, you guys started doing this to us first, so now I'm just, flipping the switch and doing to you what you did to me. So it's very much like we are now in control, which she sees as a good thing, and I think Bernard is maybe like saving humanity would be really nice and a bonus because they have potential, but also I would really like it if hosts weren't the old versions of humans.
Right.
Do you know what
Yeah.
I'm trying to say? Like,
Yeah.
there's something about,
Yeah, to
like,
keep a consistency,
protecting.
like understanding how it feels to have your existence
Right,
be in
like,
this
nobody
form.
should be doing
And
this. I don't care if it's
right,
humans doing it to hosts or hosts doing it to humans, nobody should be doing this to another being.
right.
And
Mm,
he's sort of like and I could be projecting here, I could be speculating, but it's certainly a possibility to consider that Bernard is like, "Just nobody should be doing this."
right. But when does that get tiresome for Halores? Um, it's like, well, I got you. I'm doing to you what you did to me. When is that no longer fulfilling? And
Which
now
is a great
what's the
question,
purpose, you
right? Like,
know?
isn't that a great question? Like, once you've gotten
Mhm.
everything you wanted and you're crushing everybody beneath your boot, like, how long is that satisfying?
Right. Yeah.
How long can you make that last? Or, is it going to be satisfying for a while and then Bernard goes up against her and she's like, okay, now I can find satisfaction in that. If she defeats him, like, who's next?
Yeah. I mean, maybe I have to rewatch some other stuff or whatever because it's the need to establish what is important to and how they conceptualize what's important to each host, each
Hmm.
machine. Because for a human, we look at a human, it's like, okay, your base, you know, purpose when it comes to like instinctual and stuff, it's for initial things, immediate things like pleasure. Your DNA is telling you to reproduce. Those
Hmm.
kinds of things are like the just driving core factors of
Hmm.
humans and life. What is it for a host? And humans give themselves further purpose and meaning, by adding on other things like religion or something like that. But the hosts, why? That's like the question I want answered by this season. Why
Hmm.
the struggle? So if it's like Bernard, like you say, just for in his programming and the way his personality has been designed, like I don't like to see this kind of injustice.
Hmm.
And I don't know. Yeah. It's
Well, that's kind of a fun thing about this season is it's giving us hosts that are so human like that they seem to have different motivations. Like if Bernard's motivation is, I don't like injustice no matter who's carrying it out, and I don't want to see, my particular people or people that I've created when I was human, perpetrating this kind of cruelty. That's his motivation maybe. Halorus's, security. I think, the feeling of, I'm on top of everything and I can protect everyone and I can serve out my vengeance because I have control over everything. And that gives me security and comfort and power. Christina, I mean, she is Dolores. She isn't Dolores right now, really. So I'm going to take her as her own, like, separate entity for just a minute. She says, like, what's important to her is telling stories, like meaningful stories. That's what's
Right.
important to her, connecting with others through, storytelling. Um, for Maeve, I think there's a sense of curiosity and connection and the protecting, mortality as this fragile, beautiful thing because she had
Mhm.
her daughter taken away from her, like she talks about in episode 4. She couldn't help herself. She realized, how fragile and fleeting and beautiful Caleb's life was because it was more mortal, and she couldn't resist checking in on him and seeing how he was doing and, kind of touching that beautiful spark once more. So there's kind of a humanity that we're getting as a base storyline for all of our hosts this season that's really
Yeah.
blending, I think, a great line of like, who is what and what does humanity mean again? We're kind of back to some of those core concepts in very different ways.
Yeah. That makes me think of like two things. So one is the difference between someone and their motivations when they know what they are, and so it's put
Mhm.
together in a really like literal way in this where
Yeah.
Christina, she thinks she knows who she is in a way, but maybe she's a little unsatisfied or wherever she's going through
Mhm.
life, but she doesn't understand really who she is. She doesn't understand she's
Right.
synthetic, she's not a human or whatever. So, how does that change your motivation when you know really what you are? And so like it'd be in the human sense, like if you were to think, well, I'm a flesh bag that, wanders the earth versus then like, oh, I understand now what I really am. I am one of God's children, or something like that.
Mhm.
Like if you go to another, like then
Yeah.
your purpose changes. And so it's
Right.
made very literal in this. And what will that do when she finds out? But the other thing I think this show needs to do maybe is they risk having us care about humanity enough if there's no distinction between humanity and host. If a
Mhm.
host is, for all intents and purposes, just a better version of a human, what do
Right.
we care? Now, obviously, we can still care that a being shouldn't be controlled. That's an issue that still needs to be fixed. But in terms of really caring about humanity,
Yeah.
why?
Yeah, no, I completely agree because they've taken away our one kind of remaining touchstone that we've been familiar with. They've taken away Caleb in a beautiful plot twist. So
Yep.
good. So so good. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what they're doing with this. But yeah, like our kind of normal people we've taken away and now we've got Frankie and I mean potentially her mom. Potentially, I don't really know, like, kind of where they're going with, like,
Right.
storylines and, time frames. Um, but, we've got this, like, new crew of humans that we just got introduced to, essentially.
Yeah.
I mean, we've been with Frankie for a couple of episodes, but really a couple of episodes is not all that long, where we've had Caleb at least for an entire season. He's developed
Hmm.
relationships. Um he was an analog for the entirety of humanity being controlled, and we watched his struggle to get out of that the entire last season. So, yeah,
Yep.
we're
Uh,
rapidly losing our human characters,
yeah.
and it's a problem that Westworld's obviously going to have to address if they're going to continue to talk about humanity.
Yep. Um, One thing I loved personally, at least the
Mhm.
way I saw it, is
Besides the soundtrack, because go
yeah,
Metallica.
yeah. I no, I'm just loving the sounds in general. They
Oh,
really
I
went
agree.
more cyberpunk, more Mass Effect. The tone that controls people is really nice and
Yes.
satisfying. So
It was
that's
fun
in
it was a
general.
good, there was good switches between, being in temperance and out. I felt like those, like, kind of flowed
Yeah.
when we were in the Westworld Park and when we weren't, I really
Mhm,
enjoyed. The
mhm,
20s music, I enjoyed the callbacks to, like, we're playing 20s style versions of popular songs, like, it was just all good fun.
mhm. Um,
But yeah, sorry, go
it's
ahead.
no, it's, I'm wondering, like, um, where I like that they to me, this reflects reality, in my world anyways, where the idea is I love the Hale's line that she was trying to control adults, but as they get older, they get kind of more
Mm,
stubborn.
yeah,
And
mhm.
so it took a generation. We had to start with the children that are more malleable, and that's how we take over the world. It's like, yep, you got to start with the kids. You got to get the kids first, and then if you want to change everything, that's where it goes. You're not going to
Well,
get other people. So,
it's such a familiar principle, that, like, they say that, like, adults are really stubborn, you can't teach an old dog new tricks, like,
mhm,
adults are really set in their ways, and you have to get to kids because kids are just like sponges. They just soak it up and they can learn.
yep,
It's why, like, teaching a kid a language at a young age is so important because, like, it's just so much easier for the brain to get into that. So just it's a really great way to take a familiar concept and then turn it in a horrifying fashion.
yep,
So
yep.
again, like, great writing here.
Mhm. It's like you say, it's a classic concept. It's in the book
Yeah.
1984. It's the same kind of
Yeah.
thing where you just like you have to because adults have this thing where they've had experience and they start thinking for themselves a little bit and that kind of thing. And kids don't have that as much. So you got to get to them quick and early. So I like that this applied to the science of the flies as
Brain.
well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yep, the
And
science of the
then
brain, the science of the flies. Yeah, that was good.
yeah. And then the question I had was, do you think so? Does everyone born have to be infected? Or if you're infected and you have children, are they then infected by default?
It's a good question, and I think they're going to have to answer it because it seems the the technology we understand right now that we've been exposed to seems to be that you still have to be infected, that you wouldn't just be born with it. But
Hmm.
Hale says I've had a generation to perfect it, so maybe by now there's a way
Yeah.
that, like, it just passes on, but we haven't been exposed to that way yet.
Right. Yep.
So I think there's something there that they still need to explain logistically. It doesn't have to be heavy-handed or, like, super involved. It just has to be like, this is the way that I adapted it or whatever, like,
Yep.
whatever. But yeah, so thus far we have not seen anything that would suggest um that you would be born with it because I mean, one might also wonder then how this group of humans that Frankie is with, we know Frankie wasn't born with it, but, like, what
Right.
about these other people? How old are the people in this crew? Some of them seem older, some of them seem younger. Like, would they have been born to people who were already infected? We don't know any of their
Yeah.
backstories, so hopefully we'll maybe get some exploration through them.
Yep. Yep. All right. Well, any other thoughts?
Um, Man, I don't think so. I think we covered, like, all of the big things
Yeah.
that I
We didn't
was
like
sort of
break
thinking
down each
about.
point that happened, but we covered the
Right.
important
Which is
themes and storylines happening.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I am kind of the one thing I did wanna point out that I really liked in episode 3, and I'm thinking we're going to be flashing back to young Frankie and mom storyline, um, because I really liked the way that that Caleb's friend, I think his name was Carver, that was, like, helping them pack up and, get out of Dodge and, like, get them out of town, ended up being infected. And it was like a good old fashioned, like, horror, somebody's in the house and we have to hide from them. It was very, like, simple, and I enjoy the simplicity of that plot line for a moment. Do you know what I
Sure.
mean? Like, just like somebody is in the house, the kid has to go hide, the mom has a gun, she's got shaky hands, is she gonna be able to do this? Like, "Oh, we're cutting away," like, "Oh, he's creeping around the house," like, I know that, everybody's hiding somewhere, like, what's going to happen. It was just some really simple, effective storytelling, in my opinion.
Hmm.
And Westworld could give us some more of that to like balance out the very complex storylines that they're creating. And I would not be mad.
I
Also,
agree.
apparently, mom knows how to shoot. Good job. You're good
Yeah,
for one thing, bitchy mom.
yeah. I I will agree. I like the way the scene was done and stuff. I'm glad they only did the, you know, it becomes very common to like show the person that's hiding and then show the
Mhm.
person about to expose something,
Right.
presuming they're there, and then not. You can do it once. So they did it
Yes.
once.
Yep.
Um, though I don't think he was controlled. I think he was a host copy and had eliminated the real one because we saw the
Right.
body in the dumpster and then he had blood they
Right.
got on the bear. So
Right.
unless
Right.
he's killed someone else,
Right. No,
that's the way I
totally.
read it.
Totally. Yep, you're right, and I'm just remembering that now. I was sort of thinking at first, I remember thinking, before we saw the body, that he was gonna be like the senator's wife who was, like,
Yeah.
nuts and, like, carving up the dead horse, and she had blood on her, and he got blood on the bear, and
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh my god, like, he's infected like she is," and then you're right, we saw the
Mhm.
double.
Yep.
So,
And
yep.
those pieces are making more sense now. I'm
Yes.
appreciating that they set up this stuff for Bernard in the last season, and I'm appreciating that we had the person jump saying that, "Why are you writing this for me?" And we have like the
Yes.
crazy couple, like you're saying. So we're seeing the failed attempts in the past as they're working through the kinks. I like it. It's
Yep.
good.
Yep. Yeah, this is a well planned, well executed season, and it feels, even though the storyline is different, it feels more in the comfort zone of like seasons 1 and 2, where we feel a rhythm and we feel like the reveals are coming, and they're happening, but we still have like really excellent questions to ask.
Yep.